Greetings, everybody! Welcome to the Dracovin Empire! Are you ready to dive back into the worlds of darkness once again? I hope you are. We're going to be heading back into the world's Mage The Ascension to talk about another faction that you might be able to play or be interested in learning about. The Knights Templar. Templar Knights. They go by many names. But if you're ready to learn about them, I can open up the gateway through the gauntlet to this world, very different but similar to our own, where supernatural beings exist, the world of darkness and stuff. Grab my hand. Your host and guide here, Dracovin, I'll be leading you through the gauntlet. Do remember to tip me with liking, subscribing, ringing the bell, all those great YouTube stuff. And let me know what you think about this. Would you play with me? All right. The world of darkness. We go. We've arrived. The world of Mage is ahead of us. Let's learn about our targets today. And targets might be apropos in a lot of ways, as there is a deep military connection in this game. But if I was to do additional research and, well, statistics for playing them, what sources could I use? Mage 20th Anniversary is a pretty good one, but any of the main books tend to have information on them. But also, in this case, the Storyteller Companion down there, and the Laws of Ascension Companion, both give them. Laws of Ascension Companion is for LARP rules, but it does give you some idea of their abilities, and Storyteller's Companion, which is an older book, gives you an idea of them from much older editions. Also, I didn't push it here, but the Celestial Course book does mention in a little bit. Tradition book Celestial Course, because of things we'll talk about. Because they're kind of in them, but not. We'll discuss. Who are the Knights Templar? Well, the Knights of the Temple of Solomon, the Knights Templar, Templars, Templar Knights. They go by many names, formerly called the Military Order of 4 Knights of the Temple of Solomon. All of these are names that they go by. They're a magical order of knights dedicated to God. What God? It's not like the Celestial Course God, the One. This is Christianity God. So very much so of that area. Also known as, with the nickname Warrior of Christ, they are currently considered part of the Disparate Alliance. So keep that in mind. Now when we talk about them today, we do have to look at them in both two directions. The updates that we've seen towards the M20 area, and everything from before then. Everything but before then screams a lot of the medieval side of things, and the old way of doing things. The update to the modern era doesn't really come into play by the M20, so you'll understand there is some deviation between the two sides, almost here. This, technically speaking, would have been a much more, I wouldn't say gradual shift, but a shift over the years and decades leading into the modern day that isn't reflected as well in the source material. There are shifts that we're going to talk about, that how they were originally presented, I can explain how they're originally presented, that, yeah, those shifts, we don't see it as well, because it's very cut and dry, and they were very cut and dry when first introduced. Like a lot of things, they needed some work. A lot of things when they first introduced in the World of Darkness, they're just out there, a thing. They were very much crusaders. Let's talk. And we can start with, of course, I do love this art from one of the older books, Power of the Grid. So, which is a good example of the opening of their people. So, faith in God. And this is not the ill-defined one of the Celestial Chorus, but the Christian God. Unmistakably, uncompromising. Now, individual denominations don't play a role as larger, especially nowadays, but non-Christian based faiths, Muslims, Hindus, Jewish people, don't really find entry into the Knights Templar. But beyond that, there is leeway. That basically, as long as you are a member of a Christian faith, whether Protestant, Catholic, anything else, any kind of mixture of those tend to fit within the Knights Templar. The number of awakened mages, actual mages in the Templars, has never been high. Because the doctrines of the Templars don't really cater to them, perhaps. Doesn't mean that they're not there. But yeah. because they are knights, members of their order, first, and mages second. They do see the Ascension War as misguided. It's not a war for Ascension that mages should fight, but a war of the Apocalypse. The adversary marshals his forces. When Christ eventually returns, there will be only two kinds of people, the damned and the saved. They tend to stand on the side of Christ, protecting and saving from hell's degradation and focusing their attention on their goal. Technocratic Union, as they stand foot, is regarded as basically the adversary's main tool right now. So go ahead and strike against them. But yes, for good reason, the corruption of the Technocratic Union, stemming from what they saw as corruption of its predecessors, is a big thing that's here. Yeah. So you do have to kind of recognize that, that connection with the Order of Reason, and they're seemingly seeing the corruption of that. So their magic practices that they have resemble theurgy. I'm not going to go into depths of the alternate types of magic, but theurgy is one of the Luminia, basically supernatural human powers that can kind of come into existence, similar to true faith. True faith is also wielded by some members of the Templars. Theurgy is kind of not necessarily out there, but in there. But unlike theurgy for the Templars, it's backed by spheres instead of linear magic. And for spheres, for those who are studious, are explained as emanations from God. And they also focus, they do have those that focus on linear magic, so we call it theurgy too. And they don't really distinguish from each other. So, yeah. But no, I kind of think like with TM20, we do focus more on the sphere side of things a lot more. But theoretically speaking, as the organization exists, and if you want to expand out the version of organization you are a member of, and maybe if you're playing a group of Knights Templars as an adventure, you could have other people that are like true faith builders or theurgy users that would be there. The Templars mainly focus on forces life, mind, and crime as their spheres. Okay. Let's talk history of the Knights Templar. So, the history of the Knights Templar deals a lot with the Crusades. Crusades, which are... I'm not going to get into everything about it, but it is a fairly dark time. A lot of bad things happened. It was what it sounds like. We're not going to get into that today. But it is related to that in a lot of ways. Because it was around 1119 when basically some Muslim individuals got into conflict with a bunch of pilgrims, resulting in their deaths or prisons. And a bunch of knights, 9 of them, basically wanted to protect Christendom, traveled to the Holy Land, crusade-based kind of things. Got it. And basically, they were named their group after the quarter residence in King Baldwin III, Jerusalem. And then they were formed into official military order of the Council of Troyes in 1128. This order, with new guidelines, attracted members from across Europe, and included Sir David de Bracy, an initiate of the Cabal of Pure Thought, who is part of the groups that would lead into Order of Reason, Technocracy, all those kind of things. So hey, we've got a predecessor of mages in there, with 3 of his companions, basically shaping and creating this new Knights Templar order. Or, at this time, probably by its original name, Knights of the Temple of Sun. Alright. They were basically not only protecting those of faithful in the region, those who are coming on pilgrimage, especially against supernatural creatures, perhaps getting into fights with the mages of Ali Patin, who were the Muslim-based mages, but particular, I would say more Persian-based mages connecting with the Muslims of the area. But they were a little bit more secular, but still nonetheless, they are basically seen in a lot of ways as opponents, but also practicing a lot of things that would be, in their eyes, good Christians, basically educating the ignorant, cloaking the naked, curing the sick, feeding the hungry. Doing good was in their stead, but there was perceived enemies there too. Again, their focus was more on supernatural kind of things, But they're still very much the Christian version. It's the Middle Ages. You're not getting it. So, fighting pagans, heretics, monsters, werewolves that threaten people's safety, all those kind of things. Then we get into, hey, the historical idea of the Knights Templar and being financiers, moneylenders. But this rivaled nobles and bishops. They became more and more suspecting their homelands. They had learned a lot of foreign cultures, basically could learn different languages. They were in the Middle Eastern region, learned Arabic, and Jerusalem fell them. So rumors circulated them as heretics, in league with those that would help lead to this. And basically the new goal of the Templars became to reach conquest of the Holy Land. They never reached that during this time. This was the first sign of betrayal and corruption that the Templars are very good at seeing and surviving. Basically, King Philip the Frere of France was indebted to the Templar Order and considered with his stooge, Pope Clement V, to seize the wealth of the Templars. There is belief that vampires may be involved in this, perhaps Goratrix in particular. Even another talk for another day, but he is a ancient and powerful vampire. Betrayer. One of Tremir's 7 disciples, basically. Or perhaps even vengeful mages, if not that vampire or other vampires. Basically played a role in turning Philip against them. It was accusation of heresy. The order was hunted on the lands. Property confiscated, men were tortured until they confessed the heresy. With other things like sodomy, devil worship. Accused of their order. The last Grand Master, Jacques de Molay, confessed it to this under torture, recanted, and claimed his only sin was fraudulently admitting guilt, and called for Clement and Philip to join him at God's throne inside of a year. He was burnt at the stake as a heretic in 1314. The papacy dissolved the order, ending them for good. And then mysteriously, Clement and Philip died the same year they sentenced Molay to death. De Molay to death. Now, in secret, De Molay had warned the Cabal, had been warned by the Cabal. He raised the new Grand Master before his arrest, Henry du Marquette, who fled with a select number of knights, main treasury, hidden fortune, and Mons de Labat in the Pyrenees. And basically, they rebuilt the order. The first time. Very busy Dark Ages. Renaissance. Renaissance and Victorian Age is basically going to repeat a lot of the Middle Ages in a lot of ways. We're going to say that, but not quite. So, 1325. Several reason mages and artificers met at the White Tower of Languedoc, the Cabal of Pure Thought, and with them the Knights Templar. Remember the Cabal of Pure Thought helped found the Knights Templar. They're connected. They joined the Order of Reason, the curse of technocracy, and found a world free of tyranny, of supernatural, where the common man would live without fear under one church and one god. Templars would become the Order's most valuable warriors, were outfitted by their artificers with the best weapons and armor. As part of the Venerates, the Cabal of Pure Thoughts, the Templates fought at the front lines of early Ascension War against the traditions, who they regarded as blasphemers and heathens. And the world believed them dead. Templars continued. In the Reformation, they were forced to abandon the idea of one church, instead accepting members of all Christian denominations. The core was still Catholic, but basically it was during this time period that their view on that at least began to. This shows signs of their evolution that we will have to be talking about when we get more modern age. The Cabal, in turn, focused on finding a way to expand the perceived weakness of the Christian faith, while the rest of the Order began to see religion as a hindrance in their ability to unite humanity. So then we get 1837, envoys of the Cabal of Pure Thought arrived at Mont Salvat with dire news. Order of Reason had tried to abandon religion. The Templars were to force their faith and dedicate themselves to the enemies of reason, which also counted believers. Templars didn't like this. They mounted their defense. Or the Reason arrived early. The new breed of hyper-intelligent technologies, basically they fought, were betrayed by some sympathizers within, and the new machines got to the fortress, and many Templars, including the Grand Master at the time, Roland III, died. and seem to have been extinguished again. Killed out again. Sensing dark and corruption within things. They're very good at seeing when things are getting in a corrupt direction, maybe speaking out about it a little bit, but maybe not to the right people. Things are going in a negative direction with these people here. Betrayal. Things are going in the negative direction here. Betrayal. Now, fortunately, Roland wasn't an idiot. He had appointed a new successor, Christopher the Just. Christopher led basically some survivors into hiding. These people had a little bit more apocalyptic sentiment spreading among their numbers. Basically, the word of reason was corrupt, had atheism and disbelief, weaken the flock, when the forces of hell would come, and they wanted to rebuild faith with people. Unite humanity, in faith, and it became kind of their mission at this time. And they became a lot more secretive, a lot more, even more than they were, secret and kind of hidden order. Like they already were a pretty big hidden order. Technocracy spreads. We're getting in the modern age. Templars are deep undercover. There are people during this time period that point them out that they become closer to the old Cabal of Orthol, manipulating people from the shadows, acting behind the scenes. But this was kind of the thing of modern age, as it was in those ages in the 2000s. The 2000s, we get a schism, in a way. Now, this schism has seen as been a reemergence of the Knights Templar, but also as a change in the way they think. This schism technically doesn't exist the same way we're going to talk about. The schism was in the early days, and better described in the M20. Basically, the idea was a number of members defected to Celestial Chorus, better to win, fighting with these allies who have at least a similar idea, fighting technocracy. The idea of some progressivism. Hey, they actually left progressive groups. We'll talk about that. Which, that just is, it's leftovers from World War. Anyway, the rest joining the Desperate Alliance, basically splitting the factions into two. But really, when we look at the M20 timeline of how things went, the idea is they are still an independent faction as it is, but they have made alliances with groups. The Disparate Alliance, the Celestial Chorus within the Council of Nine. Not particularly because of that, but they still see themselves as independent, but getting along with these groups. That's really what it is. It looks like a schism and a break apart from the outside, but really what it is that there are different groups that are now working from this main Templar order to basically connect up with similar people that they can have an alliance with, because the dangers that are there stand together against them. They have been fighting for so long on their own, they have seen that it is much wiser, much smarter, to basically, join together with something. Basically, they have old rivalries with Semester Chorus and others, and their secret of existence hasn't helped them up until now. They haven't been able to have that same influence as the Cabal of Queer Folk. Certainly not. So, basically, maybe finding redemption for some of these people they're connecting with because they're close enough to it, helping them in their way, and basically, these minor people might help raise militia, as they say, in the fight against it. These are soldiers that they can help in their war against hell and the forces of darkness. That's the evolution that we've seen in the modern age. Now, similarly speaking, the Knights Templar has evolved in the modern age with how they're organized. The days of the Grand Master are gone. So many times, leading under one individual has led them to near destruction. So now we have a new organization. And there are, definitely major changes that have occurred within the order. It used to be a male-only thing. It used to be, hey, one faith, Christianity, instead of the Christian, Protestant kind of Reformation kind of group of all religions. They've had to make sacrifices and evolve to be a better place because there are many warriors that they can gather. So in this modern age, now they have guns instead of swords, laptops instead of steeds, Kevlar instead of steel, and they have become no longer just a man-only club. Women are in there too. Granted, they still will discourage women from the frontline combat. they need support troops. So a growing number of support troops within the Knights Templar are women. You know. And even so, they have some combat training. They're ready if they need to. Because you never know when something will happen. And the front line isn't always swords these days. A computer virus or an IED could just be as much as a battlefield blade. So having the right training and more people that have a variety of training to fight the different fights is important. Now, they do exist as a small network of lodges nowadays. Each is presided over by an honored master who is elected by the members of the lodge. The honored masters report directly to a smaller body of regional resplendent masters who are elected from among the ranks. The resplendent masters receive directives from a small council of generals who guide the larger global work of the Hidden Knights. So rather than just one Grand Master, now it's a council of generals. Basically, they have gone global, and so rather than having one guy in one area, it's a council of all these different regions have a elected general over top of them, and this council of general then works together to order the different regions, which have their councils, and then the different lodges under them. So internet connections and communications encoded in secret scripts and references that only the Knights Templars understand are very important. So each lodge contains brothers and sisters, aspirants and knights of various degree and rank. Brothers and sisters have faith and courage, but haven't basically gotten the Holy Fire of Awakening or any kind of similar powers. Aspirants have been blessed by the Holy Vision, but they must still receive training and trial before initiation. Many lodges have declared different things too. Some declare themselves as peace, basically healing, charity, educations, or war, armed conflict. Peace chapters that have declared themselves are all female, and war chapters all male. And then there are lodges that are basically will have both genders and knights of either path. These lodges not as common as the other ones, which are very specifically focused, but they have training, recruitment, and preparations for basically going on as a whole for the Knights Templar. There you go. There's the Knights Templar, Templar Knights, the Knights of the Order of Solomon, whatever you want to call them, in a nutshell, as they are today. And they have grown. We see nowadays in the evolution of Christian faiths and the way they do things, a lot of things. But there's a lot more open thought. And the great destructions that they had led them to a near-apocalyptic vision, to hiding, to things that they were not being very successful. Being nearly destroyed twice. Once in the public eye, once in the mystic eye, is heavy for some people. It's very heavy. Their order has faced so much destruction. But now, seemingly, maybe not necessarily coming out of hiding completely, but having their people known, finding allies out there in their fight. Granted, again, they have a very Christianity view of the world. You're not getting beyond that. They are very religious people. They believe in their faith above all the other faiths. They are not the Celestial Chorus. So, that's something you gotta keep in mind. But at least evolution and open thought isn't gone from them. Basically, they've had to learn that they can't be set on their ways necessarily. Through near destruction, through damage, through destruction, through deaths, through losses, and through hardship. They do not have the power to do the things they did in the past. Would they turn those directions to the ages of the Crusades and such? I don't know. But nonetheless, they exist. They're an interesting group. And they have a deep belief they follow. So I hope you enjoy learning. I love you today. We're checking all my other stuff, whether it's live or anywhere else. My social media is a great place to know my schedule, see what's going on Twitch and YouTube. That's my Discord, Blue Sky, X/Twitter, and over on the community page on YouTube. All linked. Remember to push like, subscribe, and the bell down below. Check out all my other tabletop stuff. Again, other stuff. That's some live plays, which I've got past versions of, and discussing tabletop Saturday 6. Anyway, I'm going to say farewell and thank you, and I hope you did enjoy today, learning about this group in Mage The Ascension. They're an interesting one to deep into, and definitely connect up with people that have a religious faith. But again, there is a lot of faith in the Mage world, and this is just another group that has more. Until the next time, I bid you all a deep and wonderful farewell.